Honorable Mrs. Leela Aheer, Amitesh Anand, Joylene Chai, and Anshu Anand. We've got four of them bringing diverse perspectives from different parts of the globe. And I will begin with Honorable Leela here and let me introduce her first. Let me first spotlight and then I can actually come to the introduction. So, Honorable Leela Aheer is a dedicated public servant, entrepreneur, and advocate for equity and innovation. First elected to Alberta's Legislative Assembly in 2015 and re elected in 2019, she served as Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism and the Status of Women, where she advanced Clare's law, strengthened protections against gender based violence, and proclaimed Canada's first Women's Entrepreneurship Day. Her legislative work includes the Health Professions Protecting Women and Girls Amendment Act. A professional musician and a longtime community leader, she now holds senior roles in health, innovation, and business, contributing to inclusive economic growth across Alberta and beyond. Thank you, Honorable Leela, for joining us again. And over to you. Happy to hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Is this all right?
Could you repeat that?
Oh, yeah. Are you able to hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Himaji. And I always feel like I have with a bunch of experts, I was looking up all of these wonderful folks on our panel. Thank you to the distinguished panel for today. Um, I actually was the shadow minister under opposition for energy for 2.5 years, and my dad comes from the energy sector. So I grew up as a roughneck in Alberta, growing up with my dad on site. And one of my most favorite things to do when I was a child was to go out with my dad onto site. He worked in sour gas wells out in Alberta, and all of the gentlemen that worked out, and it was cold, and they'd give me hot chocolate and the little drafting pencils. So I had bags and bags and bags of drafting pencils from the engineers that worked on these projects. So I have a lot of great memories. I'm an energy girl through and through. You know, Alberta is an energy leader. We have some of the largest resources globally. And I just think that when we're talking about the climate tech side of things, and you were talking about this in your last panel. There was some great discussions around how around how climate tech has moved from this sort of niche portfolio conversation to something that is different. And especially in an energy producing country like Canada, we have oil and gas and pipelines. We have diverse rural communities. I mean, our country is the second largest landmass in the world with only 44 million people. So you can imagine the amount of energy and work that it takes to unite and build a country like this with such a small population. And I think that when we look at climate technology as a core philosophy, these strengthen real economies, and it's not just, you were talking about greenwashing in the last panel, technologies that don't just look good on paper. We're looking at, for us, we have oil and gas pipelines, LNG, heavy industry, agriculture, transportation. We also have indigenous lands and water systems that are all connected and not always working together the way that they should. Um, if I was to look at some of the strongest opportunities right now for emissions projects, water projects, for me, water is what keeps me up at night. That's probably one of the most important things that concerns me, but also is exciting because there's so much wonderful technology and solutions out there. I guess the question that I would pose to this group of experts and to other panels is, there was some discussion in the last panel about desire to make changes, and you can't legislate behavior, but you can legislate changes that can hopefully happen that aren't going to impact the economies of countries and can work collaboratively together. I mean, energy and the environment work together. They're two pillars of the same discussion. So this is the question that I would pose is, why is it that we see a lot of interest and a lot of discussion happening, but are we seeing the solutions actually? There's so many solutions out there. So many of them are being shelved. And so I'd love to hear more from folks and experts into what is the resistance? Aside from the dollar figures, we've talked about that it's not always balanced with the money that goes into it, with what the end side is. But I'd love to know as a person who's working a lot in this space right now, how it is that we get people really excited about this and look at how governments and companies can invest more in this. Um, Personally, I have to say that I think that we talk about carbon pricing a lot in Canada. I'm just not an absolute fan of that. I'm not sure if it works the way that it should, especially when globally not every country is committed to it the same way. Canada only produces 2% of the world's emissions, but we have some of the largest carbon pricing in the world. And what it does is that it stops us as Canadians from being able to put our molecules into the system. It doesn't stop molecules from going out. We have carbon leakage all over the place from different countries. But if Canada, who is one of the most, I would say, responsible resource developers globally, is stopped from putting molecules into the world, you're actually really, I think, impacting climate change in ways that we just don't even understand at this point. And um, we need to have competitive pricing in jurisdictions, but we don't want to put responsible resource development at a price disadvantage. We want to encourage that, especially in a country that has the kind of requirements and resource development that we do. We want to make sure Canadian molecules are actually making it into the hands of people that need them. So I just want to, again, I want to make sure that we're not confusing reducing emissions, Canadian emissions with reducing global emissions. And I think that um, when if we're looking at technology standards and infrastructure, water protection, methane reduction, and credible environmental performance, Canada is really leading when it does. And we want to share that technology. And there's so much great tech, like I said, globally, so much that's happening. I don't know if people truly are understanding what, I mean, like I said, we're a small population. We're not in the, we don't sit in the top of the, the major, I mean, India's the third largest economy in the world in the next few years. We're super excited to be able to work with India, but I think we need to see the shift in capital flows. I don't know if you've noticed this, but investors are kind of moving away from like the broad climate labels and really towards measurable solutions and production. And you were mentioning this in the last panel is how are we deploying those real assets? How are real customers being impacted, real revenue models, and real environmental outcomes? How many companies do we actually see that are showing real outcomes? It's a very, very small percentage, and a lot of money is going into the tech, but we're not necessarily seeing the outcomes. I think that's a transparency piece that has to be elevated by those of us who work in this space and also by governments. And then finally, there's a couple of companies I'd just like to mention. We've got a methane reduction organization here it's a company called Radial Casings, which actually goes into the methane wells and punches them out. You've probably seen the casings going in with cement and stuff like that to try and fix methane emissions, but it doesn't always work. There's still leakage. So Canada is at the forefront of creating methane reductions both in offshore and on land, methane reductions in wells. There's another company that's called Arca Biosciences. This is a company that I work with, which works in water reconciliation. In India, this is particularly pervasive because along the south, where my family's from, in Rajamundry, they have shrimp shells, and shrimp shells are a waste product, and the chyotin and chitosan and the flocculant left over from the exoskeleton of the shrimp can be used in water reconciliation. The question is whether or not we want to implement water reconciliation and see water coming back into the system. We can look at industrial production and fix water going back to the system to 97% clarity. And I think we figured out a way to look at the waste products and think about the jobs that could be created globally in looking at how we look at the waste from that, where we're going to put it. There's always going to be waste products from everything we do. Something I'm not getting into particularly today, but maybe somebody else will talk about is small nuclear reactors and the opportunities with those. But again, we have waste products from that we don't talk about that again, I think there's tremendous opportunity. There's also some really cool molecule-based solutions for heavy fuels and marine fuels that get rid of that sludge in the heavy crude and the ability to increase viscosity, or sorry, to decrease viscosity and to actually stabilize as combustion efficiency and fuel stability and blue methanol. So yeah, sorry, Hemant, thank you so much there's so much we could talk about. I'll just finally say that I think Canada's opportunity is to not walk away from energy, but to help lead the world in transforming energy infrastructure into something cleaner and safer. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Leela, for sharing those insights and those conversations, which are an indication of the work that is happening, and a lot more that can be, and the work that can be replicated across the globe in various places, various countries, and things that need to be coming in focus. Thank you for that, and let me introduce Amitesh next. Amitesh. Let me spotlight you then. Yes, you are on the spotlight. Amitesh Anand is a seasoned entrepreneur and technology leader with almost 2 decades of experience in business consulting and innovation. He's the CEO of Flowcart, a mission driven company leveraging a provenance based platform to advance sustainability and environmental impact aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Amitesh is also the founder and partner at 366 Pi Technologies, where he drives solutions across industries using blockchain and Microsoft technologies. Beyond his ventures, he's deeply committed to leadership and ecosystem. I am Chief as an investor and advisor and actively engaging with the entrepreneurial community. A TEDx speaker and a passionate advocate for bridging the academia and industry, Amitesh brings a unique blend of strategic vision, technical expertise, and purpose driven leadership focused on creating meaningful global impact. Over to you, Amitesh.
Thank you, Eamon. And those are a lot of kind words and a lot of barriers to be broken. I just want to talk about a few things here today, and thank you everyone for your thoughts. Thankfully I joined a little bit early, so was part of a previous panel as well to listen to what they were talking about. So today we are surrounded by all these climate talk and carbon credits, and our journey, or at least my journey on this climate tech, is not an accident, but it's been more of a design. And every time, within every passing year, the only thing that I witnessed was the hair was going gray, and my kid was actually growing up. And what we are exactly doing with the purpose or with our life, and are we really doing everything in our capacity that we ought to do at the first place? Being a tech entrepreneur ourselves, we thought that why not to really step in and make a contribution more meaningful. So in one line, if I have to say, Flowcart is an ecosystem amplifier. So what we do, we help corporations move from these vague pledges or these net zero goals that they have, or their initiatives that they have. We amplify their effort, and we amplify with a verifiable action. So our intent or purpose is just to keep taking one step at a time, inspire corporations also to think ambitious and take one step ahead. Ultimately, as business, we want to drive a campaign called Better Planet Together. We already hosted some bit of nuts and pieces in betterplanettogether.org, where we want corporations, individuals, and communities all to come together and do this together. Now, one of the things that we realized while working in this was all of this. I mean, so we are also part of this Action Decade campaign by United Nations, and we constantly were engaged by the team and tried to understand what these community-led initiatives were up to. And we identified a massive problem, and that is trust. And building a trust layer was an important part of the solution. And we thought that enabling technology for trust could be a great beginning point. And what we are also witnessing today with the carbon market, and some of the panelists also mentioned, is the demand for high integrity credit is outpacing supply. And Flowcart's platform come into this equation. So we are replacing these slow manual audits with DMRVs, and we are creating this immutable source of truth. So, and then we have had some real interesting experiences building number of products and solutions over a period of time. One of the major benefits that we realize with our tech platform is the reduction on cost, and of course, improve on the process efficiency. So we went all out as a tech company. There were absolutely no constraints. So we built something called as a planters app for a planting community, where we converted each of this tree or forest into a digital asset. So while you have been able to measure, monitor, track, trace the progress of these trees and forest, you also able to convert this into a digital asset, and not just as a digital art, but more like a digital twin of the real world assets, and that allow you to engage with more larger audience and understand the behavioral dynamics of it. So for us, the marriage between the nature-based solutions for the climate solutions and technology was kind of a point of inflection, and we enjoy doing that day in and day out. While we started the process, I mean, we are still on the journey, and I'm sure it is going to take a lot of time. But some of the great achievement was also to engage young people, and that was also a deep realization that talking to young people and not just motivating them, but inspiring them for an action was really not needed, because they're pre-inspired to do something. What they needed was a sense of direction. So SP Jain in Dubai became one of our champion institutes that we started working with. Last year, we organized a competition called UAE Sustainability Championship. This year, we had a Net Zero Thrive Championship. We had about more than 150 young innovators who utilized Flowcart ecosystem to present their ideas, pitch to the jury and panel, and to be able to really see from a very ambitious outlook. This call to action of organizing this or engaging this young talent was primarily to understand that all the UN SDGs that we talk about, all the corporations they talk about, the future angle, I mean, where do it really accelerates? And so it's accelerate with this young leadership, which is actually taking one thing at a time. Now, carbon credit market in isolation, I mean, because that's one of the most important conversation I keep getting very often. When I do or when I work with our team on the community-led initiative, there is, I mean, and ma'am really said well that, I mean, the market, even before the market is created in India, people are looking forward to a carbon market, specifically the farmers. And I think they have been made to believe that once the carbon market is launched, they'll be like rich like Bitcoins, and they'll actually have everything in the world, and they'll be able to save planet as well. So it's like check mark on all the boxes. But unfortunately, it's not the truth. And the carbon credit mechanism is more of a monitoring angle, and it has to be really aligned to everything that's happening. So, I mean, I'm open to the conversations here, talk about different things that we are doing. I can get into deep dive details and also address some of the areas that we are working on. But thank you, Hemant, and thank you everyone for having us here and making us a representation on important topic.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amitesh. Flowcart, something we should all watch out for and also engage with. So yes, next we will call in Anshu Anand. Yes, why? Where is Anshu Anand on the screen? Yes, I can spotlight you now. Okay, you are under the spotlight, and let me quickly introduce you. Anshu Anand is a trusted strategic advisor who works closely with founders, CXOs, and boards at critical inflection points where decisions around scale, capital, and governance and leadership must come together. With over 20 years of experience, she supports organizations across India and global markets in navigating growth, fundraising, ESG integration, digital transformation, and market expansion. Her expertise is often sought in high stake situations where the cost of getting it wrong is very significant, helping leaders move from fragmented efforts to clear execution ready strategies. She works closely with senior leaders on decision making under pressure, leadership clarity, and long term resilience, combining strategic insight with a deep understanding of and leadership dynamics. She brings a thoughtful, grounded approach to driving sustainable outcomes and building organizations that are both high performing and future ready. Thank you, Anshu, for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Hemant. Good evening, everyone. When we talk about energy today, we are no longer talking only about electricity, fuel bills, or operational costs. We are talking about control. We are talking about resilience. And most importantly, we are talking about sovereignty. The recent fuel and gas shortages across global markets, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical instability have shown us this one thing very clearly. Energy dependence is one of the biggest strategic risks for any nation, corporation, or institution. The question is no longer whether we should transition to clean energy. The real question is, can we afford not to? What is fundamentally changing today is that sustainability is no longer a CSR conversation. It has moved into boardrooms, investment decisions, and government policy. The global capital is flowing towards businesses that can demonstrate resilience, ESG readiness, and long-term environmental accountability. Investors are asking tougher questions. Customers are choosing brands with stronger climate responsibility. Governments are redesigning policy around carbon reduction and energy independence. At the same time, technologies like solar, hybrid systems, battery storage, and decentralized clean energy infrastructure are becoming more commercially viable than ever before. And then there is carbon. Carbon credits are no longer an environmental concept. They are becoming a financial instrument. Definitely, it does require more innovation, which I believe is going to happen with adoption, as with any other regulatory framework changes that is implemented. And for businesses that move clearly early, carbon management can become a revenue opportunity, not just a compliance exercise. The smartest players today are not waiting for regulation to force change. They are asking, how do we reduce dependence on volatile fuel markets? How do we generate energy internally? How do we turn ESG into operational and financial advantage? This is where the real opportunity lies. For large corporations, clean energy is a hedge against rising costs and supply shocks. For governments, it is about national resilience, infrastructure planning, and resource optimization. For emerging economies, especially across MENA, it is a chance to leapfrog traditional systems and build future-ready energy ecosystems. The white space is not just in installing solar panels. It is in designing a full strategy, understanding internal resources, building hybrid energy models, creating ESG policy frameworks, and conducting feasibility studies that make sustainability commercially practical. Because sustainability without strategy becomes expensive, but sustainability with strategy becomes profitable. My work focuses exactly here, helping organizations move from intention to execution. Whether it is designing ESG frameworks, identifying clean energy opportunities, or helping institutions unlock carbon and operational efficiency. The goal is simple: to turn sustainability into a strategic business advantage. My strongest belief is this: clean energy should not be seen as an environmental decision only. It is a leadership decision. The organizations that delayed this transition are not saving money. They are accumulating invisible risk: financial risk, operational risk, reputational risk, and strategic vulnerability. And in the next decade, that cost will be far greater than the cost of investment today. So if there is one thing I would like to leave you with, it is this: energy sovereignty is no longer a future ambition. It is a present business necessity, because in the world ahead, those who control their energy control their growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshu. Thank you for reiterating this message and sending out that message very loud and clear that these conversations are no longer optional, they are a must. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I invite Joylene.
Hello.
Yes. So let me introduce
Yeah,
you first before you
sure.
take the stage.
Yeah, sure.
Joylene Chai is a ESG strategist and co-founder of Global Hemisphere Group. She works with companies and investors across ASEAN to make sustainability a practical part of everyday business. Joylene's approach is down to earth and focused on real change. She's hands-on, helping organizations turn ESG goals into actions that unlock capital, improve governance, and support growth. Colleagues, Value her for making complex ideas easy to grasp and for always aiming for results that truly matter in a world that keeps evolving. She focuses on practical results, supporting organizations to go beyond basic compliance and create real impact. She offers hands on advice on how ESG can strengthen a company's resilience, competitiveness, and long term value in today's fast changing world. Thank you, Joylene, for joining us today, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me start with good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because it's good evening from my side, probably a different time zone. So actually, this conversation, we must acknowledge one harsh reality. We have officially reached the end of the feel good ESG era. So our three previous speakers has shared a lot of good things. So I think that it almost cover more of my points. So I just want to talk about more on capital shift. So for the past decades, we talk about climate investment and we treat it as like just a marketing access. So portfolios, they will fill up with generate carbon offsets. The company will reward it just simply because they have good intention. But now I want to say this era is already different. And now it's no longer there. So people were asking, so this is today, how are we going to build a resilient portfolio? It's about how we actually restructuring the whole global economy. And this kind of new compliance drive marketing is not actually for an asset to just transition ready only. We are talking about audit ready, and we're talking about whether it is a liability. And that's a big gap that we actually find that is on the data. And data will link to one thing. It's called transparency. In fact, a lot of people ask what should be the aggressive mitigation. And to me, my point of view is like aggressive mitigation for the whole capital to move away for certain superficial carbon offset. It really needs towards on verifiable and also systematic emission. And this means that transparency is the core risk mitigation for that. Why? Because as we see nowadays, global regulators, they have lost their patience. We can see that a lot of aggressive rollout for international standards and also the whole shift on the strict mechanism and how public equities actually become like a minefield for the compliance. I believe that a lot of the public listed company in different countries, they are facing aggressive movement for punishing in greenwashing as well. So because public markets, they are now hypersensitive, so this heavy lifting on energy transition, they have shifted to actually more private capital. So when we talk about private equity, is now we are doing real work. It's not just like putting up industry decarbonization tools or just put a deep tech energy storage. So all these we can even see in higher levels that how transparent you are with your data and how your data actually able to shift the whole traditional forestry offsets into the actual engineer carbon removal. So all this you will start to see that the guarantee of carbon negative pledge will become more transparent and people must doing the work. So now we just go back to the current ecosystem that operate on the ground. Let's be honest, despite like we have so much billions waiting to be deployed, still we have hesitation. So when I actually sit in the boardroom, seeing people when they talk about their ESG roadmaps, and when our team put some question into it, and especially when you talk about regulator transition, they always have a very utopia idea. So when this happened, what is the real case behind for the resistance? That is always we want to ask. So I just want to give an example that we did in Laos. So there's a hydropower project. Then, in Laos, people really talk about technology. So when we go in, we talk about data, we talk about frictions, all these. As you know, they have limited grid data as well. So every part, when we trying to help them to put up for this auditing, we face actually the silence challenges. And this audit process actually help us to see that the framework fatigue and the reality for making these 15 years old legacy procurement system to happen, how to turn into a modern carbon scoping software. It's not just what we read in the Google or what we read in the theory. When it comes to practical part, there is a lot of capital flows have to go in. So that brings us to one question that where are the portfolio all often fall into. So the true through diversifications. So most of the investors, they think that they are diversified if they hold a mix of the wine and the solar, okay? But true multi-asset thinking actually require a lot of investing into brown to green transition. And that is the hardest part. It is about funding the whole technology that to help the traditional heavy industry, especially to decarbonize. So the real alpha that I want to talk about right now is about integration. So if we look at the industrial park develops across the Southeast Asia right now, especially in Vietnam, they are trying to put in the smartest ecosystem. They are actively looking into the roadmaps, but however, they are still facing the technology integration into them is because not only about financial, it's about being more transparent. And being more transparent means that they must meet one of their emission target, which is Scope 3. And they can only be more transparent to show their facilities that provide this green, transparent, green energy data. And if you ask me, the real challenges comes from the data gap, like what I've said just now. So if you want to find a scalable solutions, these are the things that really actually happen that is a stoppage for the global supply chain. Now, my core philosophy here is very simple. Foundational transparency is the ultimate risk mitigation. To me, transparency will be the guidance. If we rush into allocate capital, like many investors, they sacrifice discipline for speed. So in climate tech or risk management or capital preservation, these are actually exactly the same thing. Your financial return are entirely dependent on how effectively your asset removes systematic climate risk. Now, one thing, if you want to leave this room for one thought from me today, I will share in my idea that in this evolving market of climate tech, financial resilience, ESG data integrity, or even AI, they are all exactly the same thing right now. If your climate investment are not anchored in the defensible audit-ready data that align with the global reporting standards, or your roadmap are not giving you a solution, you're simply very importing unpriced risk because we do not know that how much risk you will be facing. Yeah, thank you very much. Pass back to you, Herman.
Thank you, Joylene.